This is a very old slide I used to use, but I think it's still relevant now. Can everybody see this? All right, let me talk you through this. Let's think that there was a project to design a swing. So this is what the customer wants, but his requirements aren't clear, so you usually specify something like this, stick hanging off a rope. This is how the analyst saw it. This is how the high-level design team saw it. This is the programmer's response. This is the first prototype. This is what gets delivered on day one. This is the desired upgrade path, and this is actually what happens. Does that sound like a familiar story, or are we all perfect? Do you relate to that? So, a lot of times there's a lot of problems. It could be the way the team is set up. It could be the scope of the project. It could be people rushing in to do requirements. So we're all looking for a better way. And sometimes also what tends to happen in the requirements capture process is you end up with too many people, or you end up with, I saw a beautiful example of it yesterday, where everybody's being terribly nice when they're doing the voting. And you do end up with a product designed by committee. Anybody involved in that experience? Come on, put your hands up. You don't have to hide it. All right, okay. So hopefully this will help with that whole alignment issue. So normally in a larger company, there's a set of whispers in every business from what is coming at the front end, even in terms of the discussion for entrepreneurs. So the salesman talks to the customer, says, oh, we need this feature. Anybody familiar with that? Sales goes and explains the problem to marketing. Marketing goes and talks to product management. Product management goes and talks to the designer. The designer talks to the developer. And the developer talks to the supplier. Okay? So whether you shorten the thing by having 2 or 3 or 4 people, each person is bringing a different perspective to the picture. So what you typically tend to have is the customer's need sits within a business context, social context, problems they're having with the current product, what the competitor is doing, their future plans, and product opportunities. Okay? So that's where the needs come in. But the big challenge then sometimes is, can I take all these diverse requirements and pool them up into creating a singular product or product set? Okay? So it would be interesting, what do you think is the process that Apple uses to design its iPhone X?
It comes up with the idea itself, and then it expands from there. It doesn't go from the customer, it goes the opposite way.
All right, okay. Now, when is that the right thing to do and when is it the wrong thing to do? Okay, if you have a new product, if you go to conventional customers of existing products, what are the 3 standard requirements? I want it cheaper, I want it faster, I want it better. Any disagreement? Does that sound similar? So it isn't catering for the customer, it has yet to be invented. So sometimes the innovation that an entrepreneur takes is they take the leap of faith that they can meet some other requirement or see it from a different perspective, and at that time they don't actually want to be listening to the customer too hard. Does that make sense? And then it either has to learn to pivot to follow the money, or it goes out of business. Does that make sense? Okay. Please do feel free to interrupt, okay, and disagree, okay? So, if you look at the different conversations, these are the language, I want a knockout product, So somebody started with saying, I want a better beer, and the guy says, oh, I want to knock them out with beer. And somebody else goes into the chemical formulas, and then it goes down to the raw materials. And that's the kind of conversations. Does that look familiar? So whether you put everybody in one room, everybody's talking a different language. Yes? Okay? And what usually ends up happening is that rice gets converted to mice. in that conversation. I mean, most of you are working in IT. Any of you working in physical products, hardware products, other things, you'll find there's the same issue, okay? But every industry has gone through this functionalization, because the journey starts from an ad hoc process to companies with formal systems and processes. Does that make sense? So you have a requirements capture process, you have roles and territories marked out. Okay? The other big thing is, it's really important not to exceed your requirements. Right? Today we call that lean. But the thing is, if you over-engineer a product, you're making it more expensive than it needs to be. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing that tends to happen is, and I've been in enough projects where everybody gets a pet idea. I'll tell you a very funny story we did once. I was building the planning system for British Gas, and our partner came along. Now, this was a big system, and they wanted to be able to type ahead. Anybody familiar with the concept type ahead? Okay, if you're using a call center, it's really awkward to have to wait for 5 options to be read out. You want to go through. So in those days, before you had GUI, you used to do /file open, and you could literally press the commands, and as you got to know them, you pressed ahead. You familiar with that idea? So as you learn, and speed matters to people when they're doing a task. Okay? So what ended up happening was, the partner came and he wanted a splash screen between each menu option. And then that would go ta-da for 2 seconds, because he wanted to have his input there. The client didn't want that. So what we did was we built 2. The one we showed the partner in PwC, and the one that the client really wanted. Because that was to avoid the politics of everybody wanting to have their little say in. And very often in requirements capture, you end up with this, I have an idea, and I have a feature list. How many people have seen project scope and feature creep? Does that happen to you? You know, or you present something to the client, and then the client says, oh, just 1 more minute, can I just have 1 more thing? It's the builder's bane, isn't it? Huh? Oh, just 1 more thing. And suddenly the project isn't what it started out to be. So part of the thing is, how do you get elegant at managing that? Okay. So this is usually what tends to happen. So I have an expression, I don't know if you've heard of it. If the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything will be a nail. Right? How many of you use more than 1 tool in your job? More than 2? More than 5? More than 10? Because this is what you want. You really don't want. And equally well, beware of. So when I do these various talks, I'm introducing you to tools. No one tool, whether it's design thinking or lean or agile, is going to solve all your problems. The best ones are you take them out of the toolkit as is fit for the job. Does that make sense? Okay? So we're going to take you through one of these things. So the more tools you've got, the bigger the choices you've got.